This trail is all deep sand. It's the hardest thing to hike in, other than almost vertical hillsides, which frankly is easier for me. Trail are 3 holes or pits that are curious. This one looks like it's a mine. This one looks like a smaller version of the one here. Took a fair amount of energy to get all that rock out of there and pile it up on the sides here. So who knows? Tells us we're halfway on our 1-mile hike from the point of no return parking area. We'd actually hike beyond that, back to from here to the campground. That this bird built its bird nest literally 3 feet from the edge of the trail. It's a heavily used trail, and apparently used it. It's a pretty substantial nest, and it's right at eye level, so you can just look inside. It's no surprise that we have sand in the west, since most of the west was covered by huge inland lake or ocean, whatever you want to call it. And it was filled up over eons by eroded material, which would be sand in one form or another. And of course, much of the great landforms of the Southwest, the Four Corners area, are sandstone formations, which are merely compacted sand, compacted by the ocean, and ultimately other land on top of it.
Follow road signs leading to the dunes parking area. Hikers, birders, and backpackers will enjoy the forested environment along the historic Montville Nature Trail and Mosby Trail into Grt Sand Dunes National Preserve. Hikers, birders, and backpackers will enjoy the forested environment along the historic Montville Nature Trail and Mosby Trail into Grt Sand Dunes National Preserve.
Feel nature's wonders, and the nights will fall quiet and still. From sand to summit, this is Grt Sand Dunes National Park and Preserve.
That's it. You notice how this plant form on the desert uses this long stringer that it's sent out, or has been sent out from here, I don't know which, to recolonize a little farther away from itself. Somewhat secured in there a little bit. Perhaps there are some root systems that go, you can see a little bit of one there. You see it branching. Looks like they're branching out from this clump here. Footprints that look like either fox or more likely the one or more of the coyotes we heard last night. And if you wonder why would it bother to come down into this barren area, I think this is the answer. Probably a kangaroo mouse or something of that nature that somehow lives right at this edge of the desert or the sand. Downstream on a river that flows along the edge of these dunes, we'll walk down there to the left and then walk along that wet sand looking area over near the river as far as I want, and then we'll loop back up to the campground. I may get over as far as those dunes. And right here is pretty solid, as you can see, on a dune, on this dune. And down into that area right over there, you can see that it's like walking in deep sand on the beach, which is very, very hard. So we'll see how far I can physically go today. Yeah, I'll try to use is to go where the coyote goes, because coyote's not going to waste his energy walking in the deep sands like humans do. I'm going to use my great tracking skills developed over decades living in cities to determine what's going on here with these coyotes. And it looks like there might be three. 1, 2, 3. However, there is that line going across there. A good tracker would interpret that very easily, and also would interpret this mixing, if you will. Is this a urine spot? Maybe so. Have a person like me with trekking poles, perhaps realizing that that's one of the easier ways to navigate through sand. Crossed over to my left, the boundary between the really dry, beachy sand and the somewhat moist or water impregnated sand. And you can see it here in my pole that it's the case. Whether there's water here just because it rained in this particular spot, or whether it migrates by some kind of percolation from the river over there, or whether there are bursts of water flooding through this relatively flat area. And notice that this is downhill from left to right from the stream. So maybe when there's a blast of runoff from big storms, it does spread out here a thin layer and water this area. Don't know. There's some people over there walking, and I think they're using trekking poles, because occasionally that fellow right in the middle working his way up to that ridge, I'll see a flash of light, probably sun reflection. Bigger clumps formed by what look like actual material, like maybe grass clumps or something like that. But that same dynamic. And notice how right in these little areas here, it's specific pieces or grains of sand, whereas the rest of it is more of a, I don't know, a composite of wet sand. Those fluid dynamics, or something about rivers, might actually have answers. Interesting, because here are one or more deer tracks. Notice there's one, at least 2 over there, so maybe 3. Obviously just going to get some water, I would guess.